The Trump administration is defending its military strikes on boats in the Caribbean, saying the U.S. is targeting boats transporting illegal drugs. The latest incident reportedly killed 2 people, and in all, 32 have died in military strikes. ABC's Mary Bruce says the White House is facing criticism for not providing any evidence.
Trump posting that Colombian President Gustavo Petro is doing nothing to stop drug production, warning him to close up the cartel's killing fields immediately, or the United States will close them up for him, and it won't be done nicely. Trump's threat coming just hours after Petro accused the U.S. of killing an innocent fisherman during a strike last month in the Caribbean.
A New Jersey university says it is deeply concerned after what appears to be the hazing injury of a student last week.
Rutgers has issued a statement offering support to the student's family and says the fraternity involved has been placed under a cease and desist order and is now on disciplinary probation. Alpha Sigma Phi says it's still gathering evidence, but if it's determined hazing is what left the undergrad in critical condition, the chapter will be closed permanently, and any student found to be involved will be expelled from school. The 19-year-old was found unresponsive last Wednesday, but they haven't said what caused his injuries. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
Daylight saving time ends the first weekend in November, but health experts say now is the time to start getting your children adjusted to that time change. Each night until then, Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. Ever wonder why Big Wireless wants you on an unlimited plan? They probably want you to cover the cost of those 20-somethings using all that data every month. But most people 50 and up like me only use 12 gigs or less. Don't get bamboozled by Big Wireless. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Our plans start at just $20, and we use the same towers as the big guys. Join the millions who choose something better, because if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
4:05 on this beautiful sunny Monday afternoon. I'm Will Feelright with your KBNU News headlines as we're heading into KBNU's For the People show. Well, the Cache County Open Space Advisory Committee is urging landowners to submit proposals to preserve the valley's scenic and rural character, calling the process a win-win for both the community and property owners. Now, committee member Eric Eliasson was a guest on KVNU's For the People show last week and emphasized that the program is voluntary and uses $20 million that's been allocated by voters to purchase development rights. Now, that allows landowners to receive compensation and continue farming while ensuring that their land remains undeveloped. Now, since forming in 2022, the committee has already preserved hundreds of acres, including 800 acres in Sherwood Hills, nearly 600 acres in the foothills above Smithfield. Well, the U.S. job market has frozen due to widespread uncertainty over economic policy, though Utah's unique social and economic cohesion could help it better the weather in the slowdown. Now, Dr. Mark Zandi, who is the chief economist for Moody's Analytics, told the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute last week that factors such as tariffs, immigration policy, and the federal government shutdown have created a lack of hiring across the country. Now, while acknowledging the national economy is struggling, Dr. Zandi noted that Utah is in an enviable position compared to other states. He specifically highlighted Utah's social cohesion to its political landscape as a strong buffer, though the state is not immune, though, to the storms, he said. And a probation officer with the Utah Department of Corrections was arrested last week after being accused of soliciting sexually explicit conduct from a woman under his supervision. William Stickney, a 37-year-old, was assigned to the Provo Adult Probation and Parole Office and is now facing 6 counts of soliciting sexually explicit conduct from a person in custody and 1 count of official misconduct. Now, the victim had told detectives that she was in a relationship with her probation officer and provided text messages as evidence. And an accounting professor has filed a 200-page complaint with the Utah Lieutenant Governor's office alleging that dark money, untraceable political funds, is being used to influence local political races in Utah County. Now, John Barrick, who has cited several groups, including the Governor Group PAC, as sources of opaque funding for city candidates in both Orem and Lehigh. Now, he showed financial disclosures indicating a transfer of $100,000 from a Delaware entity to the Utah-based PAC. Now, the governing group PAC, started by former Utah lawmaker Becky Edwards, maintains that it's fully complying with Utah campaign finance laws and supports candidates committed to integrity. Well, sunny skies going to continue through the rest of the afternoon as we've been in the low 50s today. Tonight we'll drop into the mid-30s, then be back into the mid-50s for tomorrow. A little warmer weather on Wednesday. We're going to overall see mostly sunny skies through the rest of the week. And it's Dr. Keith Nelson that brings you our weather on the sixes, offering 27 years of experience helping to eliminate knee pain and also pain from sports injuries and arthritis. It's Dr. Keith Nelson. Find out what he can do for you by visiting drkeithnelsonortho.com. And I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News headlines.
This is Jill Anderson, CEO at CAPSA. At CAPSA, you matter. To survivors of domestic and sexual violence, you matter. CAPSA is here to help you escape the chains of abuse and rebuild a life filled with hope and safety. And to each of our donors, you matter to this work. Your donations directly fund programs that create safety and rebuild lives. Learn more about CAPSA and how you matter at capsa.org.
Hey, Chuck, people seem to need Dollar Loan Center more than ever these days.
Look, banks stopped lending money years ago to average folks who just need $1,000 or so for a little while to get through their situation. They say that half the country can't even withstand a $1,000 emergency. And that's where we come in. We get it. People end up in a pinch. You always know where you stand at the Dollar Loan Center. We're very transparent, lend more, charge less, give you more time to pay back, and treat you like family. If you like your family, that is.
You're spot on, Chuck. DLC lends up to $5,000 in minutes, and you can get your cash in person at one of our 70 locations, on our website, don'tbebroke.com, or even over the phone with one of our helpful, real staff members. You're gonna love Dollar Loan Center.
Licensed by the Utah Department of Financial Institutions. Subject to approval. Limitations may apply. See website for details.
The Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
So I bought this house in January. I have the worst lawn in the neighborhood, and I feel terrible. There's a lot of weeds. I was just listening to you talk about right now is a great time to plant grass.
Yes, my game plan would be spray for those weeds. We can kill 98% of your weeds with one application, and then seed right after that.
The Garden Guide, Saturday mornings at 8 on News Talk KVNU. KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com, and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Monday, October 20th, 51 degrees here at the Radio Ranch at 4:12 in the afternoon. It's fall. Going to be cool tonight. You heard during the news break there from Will. And, well, this is how I would put it. A good chunk of Cache Valley is likely going to see frost enough tonight to put that garden to bed. The rest of the valley, maybe not. By next week, next Monday, looking at some of the longer-term forecast overnight lows, the gardening season's done. The deck flowers are done. And maybe even a little bit of snow snow showers, at least in the AM in the forecast early next week. So it's official. I can't pretend it's summer any longer, although it looks like it outside. It's very nice. Coming up on the show today, we've had a lot of people recommend this because of their experience over the years, and I realized that it had been a couple of years since we'd actually checked in with our local Parent-Teacher Association leaders. The CASH PTA, which runs as a branch of the statewide Utah PTA service, is an opportunity for students to get not just figuratively, literally involved in education. And it's one of the most productive ways you can do so. I know over the last few years there has been a popular trend of showing up at school board meetings and shouting at school board members, usually for political reasons. Not very productive. I know that there are many opportunities you can get involved with state lawmakers on education policy, and you should do that, offer your opinion on education policy as a parent, for sure. But again, that is kind of hit or miss throughout the months in between the legislative session when those opportunities pop up. The local PTA offers you, if you have the time, a day-by-day way to be involved in your child's education and to help out as far as the education of all the children at your local schools. It's a really unique opportunity, and it's one that many parents have no idea how to take the first step to become a part of. So we're going to be talking about that today. Later on in the show, we'll be joined by a director of leadership with the Utah PTA here in Cache Valley. Becca Crookston will be joining us. So that's coming up later on. Throughout the week, just to let everyone know, we are going to be speaking with candidates. I'm shooting out emails and things like that, texts now to every candidate we can. I'm going to try and start with the Hiram and Providence candidates because we haven't touched on those yet. We, of course, last week spoke with Logan City mayoral candidate Alana was here in the studio with us. Alana Nafziger. She was here in the studio with us. A couple weeks before that, we spoke with Mark Anderson. You can listen to both via the podcast or in the on-demand section at kvnutalk.com. And also we'll be checking in with both of them again before Election Day in a few weeks. And that's why I bring this up. It's just in a few weeks. So ballots have gone out. In fact, checking with friends at the clerk's office today, they believe that everything has been mailed as of Friday, actually. If you haven't received there are so many things that can go wrong, and so many things that so few things that actually do go wrong when it comes to ballots. But if for whatever reason you have not received your ballot, if you want to be super safe, because they do sometimes get hung up in the mail, if it was mailed late on Friday, there's a chance that you don't actually see it today or tomorrow. So if you want to be super safe and not waste anybody's time, wait until Wednesday. But if you haven't seen your ballot, if you expected a ballot, you're registered to vote, you voted in previous elections recently, and you haven't seen your ballot by Wednesday, on Wednesday, contact the clerk's office. They can sort it out for you. There are many ways they can do it. It's easy. Worst case scenario. Now, Wednesday, you'll still be early enough to request a ballot and have it mailed to you before Election Day, so you can drop it in a drop box and get it back in time. But if you don't want to risk that, you can actually arrange to go down to the clerk's office, have the original ballot, whatever happened to it, if it was mailed to an old address or got hung up in the mail and just hasn't arrived yet, they can actually cancel that ballot. So the identifying barcode on that ballot, if scanned, will be a red flag, and that ballot will be shredded. So they'll cancel your original ballot, give you a ballot. They can give you a provisional ballot. This can happen on Election Day as well. If you get to the last minute and realize you've completely forgotten all of this, you can fill out a provisional ballot, and then once your identification is verified and matched with your voter registration information, that ballot will be counted as an official ballot. So there are a lot of different ways they can go about this. But again, by Wednesday of this week, if you haven't seen your ballot, there still is enough time to let the clerk's office know. Say your ballot was mailed to an old address. You forgot to update your address on your voter registration information at vote.utah.gov. They can cancel your original ballot and wherever it was mailed to, and then rendering that document, that ballot, completely moot. If it does, now this is against the law. Don't do this. If you're living in an apartment and the previous resident's ballot shows up and you fill it out, even though there is no chance that your time will ever be useful as far as a vote being counted, because once that shows up and the signature doesn't match, or it shows up and it's been canceled by the actual person it was to be sent to, that vote won't count. But more importantly, you are breaking the law. And it is, and often does, end up the case that the Lieutenant Governor's office investigates and tracks people down, and people have been charged in these situations in Utah. It's very rare. We're honest people, I think, but occasionally someone do. Now, one of the most recent stories was kind of sad. This was a mom of a missionary who didn't understand she was breaking the law because she had spoken with her son or daughter, I'm not sure which, and they had conveyed their intents to her as far as their ballot goes, and she had filled it out for them and kind of forged their signature and sent it in. Now, she was caught. The judge was understanding, of course. She wasn't sent to prison for years. I believe she did pay a hefty fine because it is the law. But anyway, it is against the law to fill out someone else's ballot, even if you think you're helping. Now, it is not against the law to help someone with special needs, and that includes maybe elderly people with reading issues. So, if you sit down and read the ballot to someone before they fill in the little dots, or, people have asked about this. What if I have an elderly parent and they don't see so good, and they're asking me which line is the name of the candidate they want to vote for, so they can fill out the dot there. Helping in those ways, it's not breaking the law. But you cannot fill someone's ballot out for them. And then if you're a good person, you're not going to deceive someone who needs help filling out their ballot in order to get them to cast the vote you would want them to cast. So those things, there is a gray area on that. But in general, filling out someone's ballot is illegal, even if you just think it's funny. So don't do it. But again, if you are a registered voter and your ballot has not arrived yet, doesn't arrive by, say, Wednesday of this week, contact the clerk's office. They can cancel your original ballot if it was mailed out and get you, there is enough time still for them to get you a ballot at a corrected address. You can also do all of this in person a lot faster as well. So again, if you want to be super safe, wait until Wednesday, because if ballots were mailed out, some batches I was told mailed out Friday, it could take till Wednesday before it arrives in your mailbox for you to fill out. And then remember, another important thing on this, the Utah legislature has changed the rules again. This is one I really hope they will undo, because this is just unnecessary complication, absolutely unnecessary. But they passed a law in this most recent legislative session that does away with something we've all been familiar with for a decade and a half almost now, which is the deadline for postmark. And it's always been the Monday before Tuesday Election Day. So this year Election Day is on November 4th. The deadline would have been Monday, November 3rd. You have to have it in the mail in time for it to be postmarked, i.e. before the post office closes. And everyone knows that. Well, that's not the rule anymore. Now, the rule is much more vague and complicated, because that's how the legislature likes to solve problems, is to make them worse. So now the rule in Utah, election law in Utah, has been changed to say that the rule is your ballot will not be counted unless it is physically in the possession of the county clerk's office or election center by polls close on election day. So, easy solution to this. Two possible solutions to this. Consider, and I don't know, they should have just made this the law so everyone could understand. We don't have to do the math ourselves. Consider Friday, October 24th, or excuse me, not the 24th. I'm bad at calendars. Consider Friday before Election Day, which would be the 31st. We'll get back to October 24th. Consider Friday, Election Day, Friday, the October 31st, Halloween, to be the postmark deadline. If you drop your ballot in the mail on Friday, October 31st, it will be postmarked and delivered to the clerk's office in time for Tuesday, November 4th, Election Day. Saturday, it is likely that your ballot will arrive and be physically in the possession of the clerk's office by November 4th, Election Day, but it might not be. Monday, unless you have some kind of inside line that there is going to be delivery from your local post office directly to the clerk's office before 5 p.m. on Monday or on Tuesday, you're taking a risk. So just consider Friday, October 31st, the deadline to mail your ballot. But I have good news for you. There are drop boxes everywhere. Every city hall, I guarantee if you drive on your daily drive, you pass no fewer than 3 drop boxes. All but one in the valley are drive up. There's one behind the county administration building. It's drive up, but they put it on the wrong side. So you have to go in, loop around, and kind of cross over to the wrong side of traffic there inside the parking lot of the administration building in order to actually use the drop box. But it's still possible to do it through your window. In fact, I did. So don't tell anyone I was on the wrong side of traffic there. But it's private property. These drop boxes are your best bet. As far as the drop boxes go, you can use those up to Election Day. They are now. I have heard reports over the years. I've never been able to confirm this, but people have told me over the years that certain cities were locking their drop boxes on the weekends, even the weekend before Election Day, or while locking it on Sundays. I can't tell you for sure. The rules say that they shouldn't. But I have had people tell me, the one in Nibley, the one in Hiram, one in Hyde Park, that they were locked over the weekends, that they were only unlocked for you to slide something in the slot up until 5 p.m. on weekdays. Again, Utah state law says they will be open. So, and you feel free to complain if you want to, but that's not my point here. My point is, regardless, these are easy. You pass several of them on your daily commute between now and Election Day. They're open as we speak. If you have your ballot, fill it out. When you go past one of these drop boxes or a city hall, just swing in, drop it in the drop box. Again, all but one in the valley are drive up, and most of them easier than the one at the county administration building because they're on the right side of the parking lot for you to drive up to in the driver's seat. It is the easiest way to do it. And again, you can do that up until 8 p.m. Now, that cutoff is hard. People have asked about this over the years. What if you're sitting in a line of cars at 7:59 p.m.? The state law says that at 8 p.m., they lock those ballot boxes, and within the next 15, 20 minutes, a collection group arrives. There are rules and chain of command and witness observation rules and things like that in play. So there's a group that shows up to collect every time they collect those baskets from within the drop boxes. But state law requires, I'm not saying this is what will happen if you're sitting in line at 7:59 p.m. on Tuesday night, November 4th, because I have also heard they've cut the line off, but they've let everyone in, because this was the rule for in-person voting. If you're standing in line, you count, even if it's after polls close. They let that line in, but they do cut the line off at 8 p.m. So I have heard they do that with drop boxes too, but I've also, the Salt Lake County clerk also said that they had a rule that at 8 p.m. it's done. They lock the drop box because that is state law. So I can't tell you for sure what the rules will be, so just don't put it off until 7:59 p.m. Tuesday, November 4th. The drop boxes are open now. You can fill out your ballot. You can swing by one of the 3 at least that you pass in your daily commute, and you can do that every day, 24/7. Up until 8 p.m. Tuesday, November 4th. And then you don't have to worry if you've got it in the mail in time. But again, if you do plan to mail it, consider the cutoff to be Friday, October 31st instead of Monday, November 3rd. Those were the old rules. Legislature likes to make things harder instead of easier. And so, the cutoff for mailing your ballot is now a bit more vague. To mail your ballot successfully, it has to be mailed in time for the clerk's office to physically have your ballot by 8 p.m. Tuesday, November 4th. If you mail it Monday the 3rd, likely not going to happen. If you mail it Saturday the 1st of November, 50-50 chance, I would say. They have it by Tuesday. Maybe higher, maybe 75-25. But Friday, October 31st, you drop it in the mail that day, guaranteed it'll be to the post office or to the clerk's office before polls close at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th. So one final deadline here to talk about as well, outside of the changed mail-in ballot deadlines and things like that. Two, actually. So the last day to request a mail-in ballot. Again, this is if you expected a ballot and didn't get one, you decided to register to vote late. The deadline for online and mail-in registration, by the way, Friday, October 24th, as I mentioned. And the last day to request a ballot, if you are a registered voter, expected a ballot but didn't get one, got one and maybe it was, this has happened before. People have gotten ballots mailed to their address for the wrong city because they used to live in that city, but they're still registered that way, but they updated their address and somehow it just didn't click. So anything like that goes wrong, the last day to fix and request a mail-in ballot, a ballot will be mailed to you to return October 28th. So registration deadline online and in person, October 24th, online and mail-in is October 24th. Deadline for mail-in ballot requesting to make sure you get a ballot to mail back in, October 28th. And again, it is really important to remember, if anything goes wrong, you can go to the clerk's office in person. And that is up until Election Day. Polls will open at 7 a.m. on November 4th, Election Day. And here in Utah, you can still register in person. So if you're hearing all this, you think, nah, not for me, but you change your mind. And I hope you do. We see a low turnout in these municipal races, and it's unfortunate because these are where the decisions that impact you the most are going to be made at the city and county level over the next few years and always. You can actually register in person at an early voting location. Those will be announced soon. Or on Election Day at the official voting location, which is usually the county event center there at the fairgrounds. You'll need 2 forms of valid identification to register and vote in person. You do them both at once. You fill out your registration. They allow you to fill out a provisional ballot. If everything matches and your registration is considered valid, the provisional ballot is then considered a valid ballot and counted like the rest. And it's easy. It's a quick process. So that's everything you need to know. Again, everything I've just gone through can be found at vote.utah.gov or visiting the county clerk's website or in person. And it's coming up sooner than you think. We are already into the final stretch on October, and Election Day, again, is Tuesday, November 4th. So these municipal races matter. We're planning the future of Cache Valley right now in these races. What happens, decisions that are made at the city level and the county level over the next few years will dictate what Cache Valley looks and feels like to live in 10, 20 years from now. I know it's a cliche thing to say, but I really don't think there has been a more important time to vote in your municipal races than this year. We'll be back with more of KVN News for the People right after this look at the news with KVN News. Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Thousands of demonstrators rallied throughout the state of Utah, including at the Utah State Capitol over the weekend for the nationwide No Kings movement. Now, the protest in Salt Lake City drew around 15,000 people. It was one of more than a dozen that were held across the state. Now, organizers had canceled a march portion of the rally to prevent a recurrence of the fatal shooting that had occurred during a No Kings march back in June. Organizers had urged participants to leave firearms at home and also deployed unarmed security trained in de-escalation tactics. Now, although a small group later did march down State Street in Salt Lake City, the main rally remained peaceful, with authorities confirming that no arrests or instances of violence or property damage were reported. Meanwhile, a 58-year-old Pocatello man arrested last week in connection with a bomb threat that forced the evacuation of the Idaho State Capitol complex in Boise earlier this month. It was back on October 8th that the man allegedly made threatening calls to a property management company in Pocatello, followed then by multiple calls to the Capitol, claiming that there was a bomb that had been planted. Now, the Capitol was evacuated as a precaution, though no explosives were ever found. Police were able to locate the man shortly after the threats through a joint investigation between the Pocatello Police Department and the Idaho State Police. And a juvenile from Syracuse has been arrested over the weekend and charged with murder after a fatal shooting happened in an Ogden neighborhood early Saturday morning. Now, Ogden City Police said they responded to shots being fired at about 3 a.m. and found one injured juvenile victim who was pronounced dead at the scene. Detectives say they were quickly able to identify the juvenile suspect who was taken into custody shortly after. They say, though, that due to the ages of those involved, police are not releasing the names or further details of the ongoing investigation. And what was that smell? A Delta Airlines flight that was en route from Los Angeles to Salt Lake City over the weekend was forced to turn around and return to Los Angeles International Airport Saturday after an unpleasant odor was detected in the cabin. Now, Delta Flight 2311, that was carrying 189 passengers and 6 crew members, had departed Los Angeles on Saturday. Now, according to the airline, the odor was traced to a spoiled food item that had been brought onto the plane by a customer. Now, a Delta spokesperson said that the most important aspect was customer passenger safety and those that were on the plane. The plane landed safely back in LAX without incident. Delta apologized for the disruption and confirmed that all customers were rebooked to continue their travels to Salt Lake City. Well, clear skies continuing through the rest of the afternoon and into tonight as we'll see temperatures dropping into the mid-30s overnight, then be back into the mid-50s for tomorrow. We're going to continue to see this weather pattern through the rest of the week with mostly sunny, clear skies during the day and clear skies overnight. Looks like we could see another chance of some showers and thunderstorms coming for the weekend. And bringing you our weather here at the bottom of the hour is Quality First Insurance. If you're frustrated about your current insurance agency or confused about coverages, you need options. Call Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance at 752-0101. And with your headlines here at the bottom of the hour, I'm Will Feelwright. More of KVNU's For the People show coming up next.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Amazon Web Services says it's found the problem that led to that global outage for its business and users today, but there are still some issues that persist.
Websites for the Wall Street Journal, Pinterest, Verizon, Delta Airlines, and others continued to have problems into midday following a major outage at Amazon Web Services in the overnight hours. Amazon accounts for about a third of the cloud computing market, which means when it has problems, it affects major swaths of the internet.
An appeals court has overturned a temporary restraining order that prevented the Trump administration from deploying the National Guard to Portland, Oregon. A broader order banning any state's National Guard from deploying remains in effect but could face a legal challenge. Construction began today to tear down parts of the East Wing facade of the White House, all to make room for a new ballroom. French authorities searching for 4 suspects after a brazen heist at the iconic Louvre Museum, getting away with prized centuries-old jewels. This is ABC News.
For over a decade, Roof Rescue has been safeguarding your homes with the finest roofing solutions. We understand the value of your time. That's why we're committed to replacing most roofs in just one day. With award-winning service, 100% guaranteed workmanship, and the best warranties in the industry, your watertight peace of mind is guaranteed. Call us today at 435-999-4268 or visit roofrescueusa.com and ask for the $250 off any roof replacement. Financing available? That's roofrescueusa.com.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan, this is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
Good afternoon. This is Mitch Green with Adams Wealth Advisors. U.S. equities advanced sharply today, kicking off a pivotal week for corporate earnings and an important economic update on Friday. Investors brushed aside recent political uncertainty, focusing instead on a wave of upcoming reports from major names such as Tesla and Netflix. Optimism also grew in Washington, where officials signaled progress toward resolving the government shutdown. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett suggested an agreement could arrive as early as this week, citing increased willingness among among moderate Democrats to reach a deal. Still, he cautioned that optimism could prove premature if negotiations stall. Markets responded positively to the upbeat tone. The S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average each climbed 1.1%, while the Nasdaq rose 1.3% amid broad-based gains. Only the staples and utilities sectors finished slightly lower. Treasury yields were stable, with a 10-year note holding near 3.98%. In commodities, gold surged more than 3% to a record $4,350 per ounce, while crude oil slipped to $57.49 a barrel, its lowest since 2021, offering relief to consumers through lower energy costs. Corporate news added further momentum. Apple gained 3.3% following strong sales of its latest iPhone model. Zions Bank rebounded 2.1%, continuing its recovery after last week's steep decline tied to a $1 million client fraud charge. As investors look ahead, focus now shifts to key earnings results and Friday's Consumer Price Index report, which will provide critical insight into inflation trends, especially given the dearth of data amid the government shutdown.
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Hey there, quick question. Wouldn't it be nice if your home stayed cool in the summer and warm in the winter without your HVAC working overtime? With Cardinal Spray Foam insulation, it can. They use an insulation that seals the gaps you didn't know you had, keeping air in, comfort up, and energy bills down. I guarantee you'll feel the difference. Plus, you could qualify for a $1,200 tax credit. Call 755-5012 or look them up online. Cardinal's Insulation, 755-5012.
Hear that? That's the sound of winter coming, and your overgrown trees might not be ready. One heavy snowstorm can snap branches, damaging trees or worse, your home. Before winter hits, call Hall Tree Care. Sure, you can trim your own trees, but if you do it the wrong way, you can weaken your trees or even kill them by inviting pests or disease. Hall Tree Care's certified arborists know exactly how to trim your trees the right way. Call 760-6587 and get 10% off. That's 760-6587.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. This is a pretty big deal, I guess. I think we're all kind of reaching a point where, you know, you drive around Cache Valley and you look around Cache Valley, and I think it's natural to kind of have a first reaction, at least, of kind of irritation. It's changed a lot. Driving many places is very different these days. We all know nothing stays the same, right? We all know as well that the projected 66% increase to our population here in Cache Valley in the next 30 years is mostly birth rate. It's internal. This isn't migration. I mean, we do have a lot of migration into the valley, but it's often offset by migration out. And this is the projected growth based on, well, just that exponential birth rate. One family has 4 kids. All 4 of those kids have 4 kids, and you see how quickly it can grow. 66% population increase in the next 30 years, and they got to live somewhere. They got to work somewhere. They got to drive somewhere. It's a lot different driving around Cache Valley. It's a lot different looking around Cache Valley. I had some friends visit who hadn't been here in about 10 years this summer, and they were astounded by the open fields that were now subdivisions or apartment buildings or townhomes. They were most shocked by a certain development on a corner that was a popular sunset photography area there in Providence along the main highway, and it's now a business's headquarters, or will be soon. And the gate and the lights are going up there, and they were thrown off by that. It was have acclimated. I've seen the change happening all around me every day as I'm out and about, right? The rest of us as well. But these folks hadn't been here in 10 years, and they were shocked. They get it. They live in a big city, and a big city that's been built out for decades. And so they don't see a lot of change, but they also don't see a lot of open space. And so they talked a lot about that, and I assured them, yes, there are efforts underway to preserve our open space. Is it enough? I don't know. Hope so. We'll see. A lot easier to preserve open space than to claw it back, and a lot easier to preserve the culture of Cache Valley with open space than without. So, yeah, again, fingers crossed on that, but I think things are headed in the right direction there. But, yeah, I get it. It's a lot of change. It's going to get worse. This was a report presented to so this report was done by a developer, Envision Homes, but they worked with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity on this. And this was a housing report that was presented last week to a legislative committee. And so, again, the GOEO, I don't like that. Let's go back to the Governor's Office of Economic Development. GOED sounded so much better. But GOEO, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, as it's been renamed, working with Envision Utah. I'm sorry, I said developer. This is not a developer. This is a group that represents and does research, basically, on behalf of Utah, that is funded primarily by developers. So, but they worked with the nonpartisan researchers at the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and they brought in some private third parties as well. And they've been working on this for about a year. And it was presented last Wednesday in a legislative committee. I've linked to the audio of that presentation if you want to hear what I'm about to summarize in its entirety. It was roughly a 20-minute presentation. And the first thing they said is this is not prescriptive. They are not saying, the managing director of operations at the Utah's Governor's Office of Economic Development, at the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, mouthful, Cameron Dalton said, first off, this is not prescriptive. We are not saying this report is what lawmakers should do. We do make some recommendations based on our research. But the idea of this report is to inform the legislature as they craft policy. Dalton said, this is a picture of where we are likely headed if nothing changes today. Now, we know that's not the case. We know the legislature will be passing laws. We know counties and cities will be changing zoning rules or updating things, putting together master plans. So, again, Dalton said, we're not trying to scare everyone. We're saying if we work with the policy and the rate of development that we have now, and nothing changes as the population grows, we're 200,000 homes short of demand in the next 25 to 30 years. So Jason Brown, the CEO of Envision Utah, was also part of the presentation. This new housing report itself can be downloaded via the link I've posted on our Facebook page as well. They presented this last Wednesday during interim legislative committee, and the report in short basically says the state is on track to only build about 72% of the estimated 842,000 or so homes that population growth will demand between now and the year 2055. And they said in ways this is good news because it showed us that our trajectory is pretty clear and we can create a baseline scenario. But the study's own results suggest that there are going to need to be some policy changes. And that is where the questions come up. Is this something that needs to happen at the city level, which gets us back to, is the legislature going to step in and start telling cities what they have to do? They've threatened to do that. Now, it had nothing to do with any city in Cache Valley, but there were some cities in southern Utah that were refusing every building permit, just saying, nope, we don't want more people. The legislature didn't like that, of course, and said, look, everybody needs to be building right now because there are a lot of places people want to live, and our population is exploding, and build homes. And the city said, no, I'm not going to do it. And the legislature said, okay, we're going to take over zoning rules for cities. That made everyone nervous, as it should, and they pulled the handbrake on that. But the threat was never called back. It's something the legislature has never said they will not do. They just didn't follow through on it when they threatened it. That's one possible way that things could change, and I don't think that would be a positive one. So the legislative committee talked about a lot of different options they have, and one of the ideas that was put out there that seemed to catch the most traction with the Republican majority on the committee. Now, this is ironic because, of course, you'll hear Utah lawmakers any chance they get griping about centralized government at the federal level. But in the end, basically what they seem to endorse as a possible way forward, and we'll see some legislation pop up on this specifically in the session that kicks off in January, was centralized government, or more of it. State Representative Cal Roberts, a Republican from Draper, who co-chairs the Utah Commission on Housing and Affordability, i.e., this is a guy who knows what he's talking about, said that one of the things they found is that there's fragmentation. He called it a labyrinth. He said this fragmentation makes it really difficult for policymakers to get their arms around what exactly is happening in the housing space. And fellow co-chair Senator Lincoln Fillmore, Republican lawmaker from South Jordan, actually, chimed in and agreed and proposed a specific plan. And that is to streamline and consolidate all of the housing programs under one umbrella, the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. They would create a new position, a housing czar, basically, within that agency. The legislature loves to do this. It's a way for them to grow government while still campaigning against growing government, because they're not creating a new state agency. They're just creating 100 million positions within an existing agency. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying recognize it for what it is. This is creating a new state agency, even if they don't use those words. So basically, there would be a new position created within the existing Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and that person and their team, agency, would be overseeing basically working as a deputy director of housing, overseeing programs and policy implementation from the city level on up to the state level. It would also, they said, now we should exclude from this new agency, though they're not calling it that, homeless and federal programs already running. They work a bit differently, even though they do get into the housing environment. They work differently. Department of Workforce Services also has a lot to do with certain housing policy, but when they do, it's coming from a different angle. So they said, we won't rope them into it, but everything else we should consolidate into, from the state level on down to the city level, housing supply policies and organizations, land use programs and authorities, state policy directors and more people charged with implementing state policy at the state level, planning at the city and county level. We should rope all of this together under the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and create a new state agency, but let's not call it that, to oversee it. Now, this isn't a done deal. It will have to be a piece of legislation that is debated and voted on in the legislative session before any of this can actually happen. But the Republicans on the committee last Wednesday basically endorsed this idea. Brown, co-chair, said these massive developments that would need to happen to meet this projected shortfall, again, a nearly 30% shortfall over the next 30 years in the housing needed for the projected population growth, Brown pointed out, is also going to need a lot of infrastructure to support massive developments, and the state is going to have to probably kick in some on that because a lot of cities aren't prepared for that type of thing. So the state, of course, will not do that without attaching strings and taking some control. That's scary to think about. What I'm saying is we could see a scenario where the legislature says, okay, we've created this new agency that oversees all housing development in some way, shape, or form, and where the state money gets divvied out. And in order to get this huge grant to, build the infrastructure for a gigantic housing development in your city, you have to agree that the legislature gets final say on your zoning policies. Now, I'm not saying that's what the legislature will do. I'm saying it opens the door. So this is a good thing because the report basically shows that what we're doing isn't quite enough, and we might not be going about developing the right way or even the smartest way, which to me says leave it to the cities because they're on top of this. They've been doing a lot better job than the state. But, of course, the state will never, the legislature, rather, will never admit that. And instead, what they're saying is we need a housing czar and an agency, though we won't call it that, to oversee housing policy and work with cities, counties, as the state money is doled out for infrastructure and development, et cetera. Again, with the report saying that we fall about 28% short, 200,000 homes short of projected demand for housing over the next 30 years. If you want to read the report or listen to the committee meeting in greater detail, I've linked to both on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of KVN News for the People right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
This is Michaela Hansey, CAPSA's Social Service Director. Victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse often feel alone and afraid. When you call CAPSA's 24-hour support line or come to CAPSA, you will speak to a trained caseworker who will believe you and can help. We know your story is complex, complicated, and often dangerous. CAPSA's advocates are the experts on navigating the complexity of domestic and sexual violence.
Learn more about CAPSA, including ways to support, at capsa.org.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and AMA Waterways. Explore Europe on a deluxe river cruise and step back in time as you sail along the Danube River, visiting Austria, Hungary, and Slovakia. To book your next AMA Waterways river cruise, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
When you take a walk around your neighborhood and notice all the things that make it feel like home, one thing might be a little harder to notice because somewhere tucked in that neat row of houses is hunger. Over 30 million Americans don't know where their next meal is coming from. At Albertsons Companies and Safeway Foundations, we are on a mission to provide 1 billion meals by 2030 because everyone should be welcome at the table. Learn more at nourishingneighbors.com. Let's break the cycle of hunger together.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
This is Jake.
Is this Jake Ure?
It is.
I was wondering if we could treat you to free lunch.
Sure. Why?
Someone reached out to us and told us how you have run Bear River Mental Health for years. They have watched you spend decades serving people in our community who have mental health issues.
I've been very blessed to be there, and thank you for your recognition and taking care of people that take care of people.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
That is the sound from a video of a chaotic scene Saturday night as BYU students stormed the field in Provo. It was, fair enough. BYU fans rushing the field Saturday after the Cougars' 24-21 win in the Holy War. BYU facing University of Utah. What's interesting about this, though, is that this really chaotic scene. There's a photo, actually, of BYU President Shane Reese being, I think at first involuntarily, and then after that having fun with it. They're crowd surfing him out on the field. I think they just kind of picked him up and started the crowd surfing, and he went with it. Again, the 24-21 win for BYU at Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo was huge, and fans excited, obviously rushing the field. But again, this is going to be costly for some people. The Big 12 typically finds schools for their fans running onto the field to attempt to prevent such a scene from taking place. There are safety concerns involved with this, and, sportsmanship issues also that the Big 12 would be concerned about. But basically, they want to discourage this. They know it's going to happen occasionally, but they want to discourage it. And BYU fans stormed the field. Fines be danged, as they would say in Provo. And, so BYU safety Tanner Wall said after the game, I don't know what we're going to do to keep them off the field tonight. We already got someone ready to pay the fine, so I think we're good. And then exactly that happened. The someone was Jason McGowan, co-founder and CEO of Crumbl Cookies, famed cookie company here. It launched here in Utah, actually here in Cache Valley. And in a video from BYU's locker room that was posted by McGowan, Cougars head coach Kalani Sitake told his players McGowan would be covering the fine himself. And, here was their response to that.
Jason McGowan's going to pay the fine right here for
That is the team cheering in the locker room. But McGowan wrote that he was happy to do it. Got to celebrate them wins, he said. Again, the field was rushed. The field rush was the first since 2022. That was in the Baylor game, if you remember that. And Arizona State fans poured onto the field just last year in a BYU game after beating BYU. They were fined $25,000 for that. And a few weeks ago, the Big 12 fined Colorado $50,000 for a field storm. So this is it's a pretty big deal and a lot of money. But Crumbl Cookies co-founder and CEO James McGowan, he was on the field. He was part of storming the field. He said he's going to pay the fines, whatever they end up being, because it was a big deal. And he said the team and the students deserve to celebrate. So. And it got him into the locker room to be cheered by the team. I'm sure that was a bit of an incentive for him. But if you watch the video, when the coach announces that he'll be paying the fine, the look on his face in the video, I'm not sure they discussed it beforehand. But it was out there, and now he's got to do it. We'll keep you posted when we know what those fines are. Coming up in hour 2, we'll kick things off with Becca Crookston, Director of Leadership for the Utah PTA. She lives here in Cache Valley. How you can get involved in your child's education.